Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Bondfire podcast. I'm Matt Cooper, and tonight's guest is Emily Weisband. Emily is a very talented singer-songwriter here in Nashville, Tennessee. She has written for people like Halsey, like BTS, Thomas Rhett. Anybody that you've probably listened to, she's probably written for. So we're excited to have her. Tonight we're going to be in 2 Timothy 1:7. So if you got your Bible, you can open up to that now. And we hope you enjoy this episode. I love Christian songwriters, and I think Christian music is great, but it can just feel, even like my own personal stuff, it can feel like a bubble sometimes. It's like, we only write Christian music, and it's great, and I'm all for it. But for me, like, I love exploring the different types of like sounds. Like, I love, like, one day I want to make like a Bruno Mars type song, or one day I want to, make a worship song and stuff like that. So you're literally the epitome of like the songwriter I would want to be. So
thank you. That's really nice.
You're
I'm
welcome.
lucky. Like, I know I am getting to, dip my toes in so many genres and actually be embraced. Like, especially like the Christian artists I work with, like, I've definitely had experiences in Christian music where they're like, you don't look Christian to us. Like, we don't want you around here.
Sure.
But the people I've connected with in Christian music, Jeremy Camp being one of them, like, they just embraced me and they let me be, they know exactly who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't change the way I talk around them. I don't change what I talk about.
Yeah.
I am fully myself. And, there is a level of like, knowing your audience.
Sure. Yeah.
And, like, I'm not a boundaryless person, but my whole point is I'm very much myself with every person I work with, no matter what genre they're in. And, or at least I really just try to be. And I think that comes natural for me. And, I've been very embraced by them, and I appreciate it. I know I'm in a unique spot, and not everybody gets to hop around like that, but
I love it.
The fact that I've been able to is
how
cool.
many times have you worked with Jeremy?
Oh, he's like family.
Okay,
we're
so
3 records deep now.
You met the daughters, and
I know all the daughters. I've written with the daughter.
They are awesome.
I've hooked
and they
the
are
son
talented.
up with tickets. They're really talented.
I'm trying to.
We wrote a sick song. Like, Jeremy texted me. He was like, "Hey, my daughter's like doing a pop thing. Like,
they're awesome.
Do you want to?" And she actually, it was so funny because I went to the studio to work because Jeremy was going to write with us with Ari.
Yeah.
And he was like, texts me like on the way over to the right, and he's like, "Hey, we really want to model the song after this song." And he sends me this Lennon Stella song that I totally wrote, and they didn't realize that I'd written it.
Let's go.
And so like I pulled to the right, and they're like, "Did you listen to the thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know that song pretty well, actually." Like,
I wrote that song.
I actually wrote it. And they were like, "Shut up. Okay, crazy." So it's actually like really funny how the world's kind of like will randomly collide here and there.
It is a small town.
But yeah, they're so talented.
They are.
They're really talented.
And that whole family, I met them a couple months back through my other friends, and I met Jeremy's wife as well, and I had no idea that she was a singer.
Oh, I listened to her growing up. Literally the first time I worked with Jeremy, I was like, I was like a big fan of your wife.
I mean, the whole family.
They're the sweetest, most...
They are.
80 texts me like every couple months, just like, "Thinking about you, how are you?" Like, and I'm so awesome. Horrible friend back. Like, I'm like, sometimes I like won't even... I'm like, ugh. Gross, cringy, like, "I'm a bad texter." Like, that's the cringiest thing to say, but
I get it.
I'm just kind of like ADHD and pretty irresponsible with that stuff, and I'll just like own it.
I get it. There gets to a point where it's like you just see like the 82 messages on your iMessage, like, I can't.
I'm pretty sure we gotta check it. I think it's like 860 right now.
I can't do that.
And that's not a brag. That's embarrassing for me to admit.
I can't do that. It stresses me out when I have the numbers on it.
It stresses me out too, but that's why I avoid it even more. So then I'm just like, but my whole point is they are the most intentional, lovely family. And so, we're 3 records deep now, and it's awesome. This new record, it's called Deeper Waters, and there's 12 songs on it. I sang background vocals on every song, and I wrote 9 of them with him. So
let's go. Yeah.
It's my favorite record we've done together so far. So
cool. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I want to first and foremost just kind of know your story, and I know that involves a lot, but I know you've done the songwriting thing, you've done the artistry thing, but take me back to like growing up, like where are you from?
I'm from Virginia.
Take me back to Virginia. take me to, what went down there and kind of where you're at now in Nashville, Tennessee. Hit me with it.
Okay. Born in 1993 Virginia, Arlington, Virginia. It's funny. I'll like randomly meet people in music. They're like, I'm from Arlington. And I'm like, no way. What hospital were you born in? And I've met several people that I'm like, we're born in the same hospital.
Did we just become best friends?
I love meeting people who were born in the same hospital as me. Anyway, yep. Grew up. I'm one of 6 kids. Okay. I have a older half sister who, she was like off to college by the time I was born. From a little rendezvous my father had as a teenager. And, I'm the oldest of the 5 that my parents have together. And, there are 5 of us in 5 years. So, like at one point, my mom had a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, 2 2-year-olds, and a newborn all at the same time. So we're all really tight in age. We all live here now. My parents live here now. We've kind of all migrated to Nashville. But yeah, I grew up in a very, like the most safe, loving, wonderful childhood. I don't look back on my childhood and think like trauma. Yeah. Like everybody has daddy issues. You can have the best dad in the world and you still have daddy issues of some sort.
Sure.
But yeah, I just had a really loving childhood and fun. It was just like loud. It was obnoxious. It was normal to me. It's funny. I'm like married now to a wonderful man who only had 1 sister. And it's so funny when he's like, that's weird, right? And I'm like, no, like that was normal to me. Like no boundaries, no privacy. Being the oldest, like my siblings always roast me, but I was like the guinea pig of the family and I still am.
Yep.
Like my first kiss was the whole family's first kiss. My first date was my parents' first child going on a first date. Like it was, I had all the firsts, and still to this day, I first to get married, first to try to have babies, I've had a couple miscarriages, like first to go through that. All my siblings are watching like, okay, mental note, don't do that, blah, 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 blah. So that's been like a fun little pressure thing my whole life. And I don't say that in like a bad victim-y way. I think I'm like made for it, low key. It feels a songwriter in me, I think, to like, I'm willing to say it first or do it first or, be the first one to admit XYZ. So I think that's like served me well. But my dad was an agnostic till a few years before I was born. So he had like a Holy Spirit experience. And so he always said like the Holy Spirit saved him, not church, like not religion. So I grew up very like non-religious, but we grew up believing in Jesus, following Jesus, Christian, but not in like a religious way. It was, I never felt not accepted or not loved, or my dad was always very, and still is like always very open about his flaws. Yeah. So I never felt like I had to hide mine. And I think that's also served me in music. Like I'm not afraid to admit things that maybe aren't pretty. And I think it's because I watched my dad find strength and power and like leadership in doing that. And so, I just grew up very loved and very free to be myself and very supported. So when I was 11, I had a guitar and my dad had bought a bunch of instruments he wanted us to start like a family band. And I was the only one who like was into it because I was kind of a daddy pleaser. And so I learned some chords on the guitar. I wrote a song. My dad cried, and I've said this on many podcasts, but I just felt so freaking powerful the day I made my dad cry from a song I wrote. Wow. And I just became like, I found just so much purpose in that moment. And I just wanted to see what other, I say like, my dad is such an immovable object in my little girl brain. And so the fact that I moved him just made me feel like, what else can I move? So who else can I make cry? And I make that joke a lot, but it's like the truest way for me to say it. Like the bug bit me that day and I just became addicted to writing songs and showing them to people and seeing if they felt something from it. And so that's what I did every single day until this guy at my church told me about the school Belmont in Nashville. My dad had been talking to me about Nashville like my whole upbringing, and he played in bands and wrote songs, and so he'd been here a few times, and he was like, you gotta go. That's where all the songwriters are. There's this whole world of songwriters. They all live there, and you gotta go. So it was funny, I originally wanted to go to medical school. And so my last years of high school, I took a bunch of college courses, and I was going to go to try and get into like UVA in Virginia and do the whole pre-med thing. And I like didn't even send in my application. Like this guy at my church told me about Belmont. I saw they had a songwriting program, and I thought, I want to get better at songwriting. Like that sounds fun. So, I went to my dad. I said, Dad, no more to medical school. I'd like to go to Nashville. And he was like, okay. And he's never been here's how much money we have, so here's what you can do. It was always like, what do you want to do? Yeah. And we'll figure it out. Yeah. And so, I've just always felt so empowered by my parents. And he always said like, I'm raising adults, not kids. And so just always empowered me to like make my own choices, and that I had the ability and the goodness in me to make them. Yeah. And that it was my, honor and right as a human to be able to make decisions, and there's good consequences and bad consequences, and I get to decide what my life looks like. And I genuinely, for a long time, I think I thought I could jump off a cliff and I'd grow wings, like I wouldn't die. Because he just made me feel that way, and just spoke life into me. It was not like a spoiled childhood. It was just like he was always speaking life and love into us. And so that's probably what gave me the oomph to be able to pack up and move to Nashville and think I could make something of myself there. Cause I just had this life spoken into me my whole life, that I had purpose and power, and that I was, had a gift, and that I was empowered to use it. And so, I moved here. This girl who's now my best friend, but she signed me up for a writing showcase at Belmont, and I got in, and my publisher was there that night, my now publisher, and I ended up signing a publishing deal. And I think I'm like in April of this year, it's my 10-year mark of writing professionally and doing the thing. So it's been quite the journey. Got married a couple years ago. I mean, there's so many like versions of my story. There's like the faith version of my story. There's the music version of my story. There's the personal relational version of my story. And then there's like the version of my own self evolvement. And so anyway, like when people say, tell me your story, I'm like, which version of it? But I mean, at the end of the day, who I am is my daddy's daughter, and my sibling's sister, and my husband's wife. And so that's usually the version I end up going with. But love that. It's been a good life so far. I mean, your whole life, really. I mean, you grow up in a family being told to believe certain things, or, like I said, like what's normal to my family is not normal to my husband's family. Sure. What's normal to his family is really not normal to me. Yeah. And so it's like you grow up in your version of normal, and then you go into the world and you need to figure out like, who am I in the midst of how I was raised, in the midst of like, my career. And this is a weird career. Like I'm the product, or like my heart, my soul is the product. It's not like I'm sitting in a cubicle, cooking the books and like go home and forget about it. It has nothing to do with my personal life. Like my relational life and my music life are so intertwined. And it's like, what's my balance there? Like, what are my boundaries there? Who am I in the midst of how I was raised and what I believe, and how I used to view God versus how I view God now. And then life throws you something weird and you're like, okay, well, what do I think of God now? And how does that affect my creativity and my music career? And like, oh, okay, let's get married. What kind of person I've been told I should look for, and I've had this idea in my brain of who I'd end up with, and like, my husband definitely does not look like that, but it's better than I thought it looked. And like, okay, well, it doesn't really feed my creativity. In fact, it's kind of like a safe place away from my creativity. But I always thought it would feed my creativity. But it's actually the place where I can go home and unplug from my creativity. And I don't have to be Emily, the songwriter, at home with that person.
Yeah.
And I'm having to break away from being my daddy's daughter a little bit with that person.
Yeah.
And it's also making me, I don't know. But when I just say like, you know, I could tell you how I've grown in my faith. I could tell you like my music career. I could tell you how I met my husband and all my relationships that led up to that. But it's just, life is just.
It's all intertwined.
Yeah. I mean, they're all me. They all feel like me.
So many different paths.
Sorry, that was probably the most like.
No, that was the best answer.
Literal, crazy, messy answer.
I mean, I feel like that is like a lot with entertainment people, especially. It's like you know, you can get into the fact like, that's the thing with these actors. Like I love acting. I'm all for it. But the dangerous part that I've seen with so many people, especially like friends that I have in that industry, is that like you live like this one life and then you have to play this certain role and it ends up becoming kind of like your real life in a sense. And it's like you live like so many different paths and you don't even like know who you are anymore. Yeah. And it's crazy. It's crazy. And I mean, the same like is in any field, but I see especially with like acting and like even the music sometimes it's like you become like a different person on stage or like, and then you come home to like you go to your hotel and you're like, what was that? Like, that was cool. But like, what, like, I'm back here now. It's like, who am I?
It's weird to know. And then sometimes you just have to go, well, I'm all those things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know,
I get it. Where are you at with God right now? Like, if you could like describe kind of like what's that like relationship kind of like that, and you could be totally like.
I will be absolutely honest. Absolutely. I will not lie to you.
I love that she's like not like surface level. She's just go.
No,
like,
we'll totally
straight
go.
Up.
I'm having a hard time with God right now.
Yeah, get it.
It's not that I don't believe in him. I really do. I've had faith crisis moments in my life where I'm like, I don't know if I believe this stuff.
Yeah.
I think I have such a good father.
Yeah.
I have such a good dad. Like, I know my dad would never hurt me. I've always been very thankful for my earthly dad's love because it made me, it really, I mean, in a lot of ways shaped my view of God. Like, you know, there's that fatherly bond between us and God. That, you know, whether you believe in God or not, I do think it is in all of us. Like, if you believe that God created us, like, to be loved by him and gives us the choice, like, if we're gonna love him back, I mean, he's gonna love us anyway.
Yeah.
And so I do believe like that is the satisfaction to the missing piece in all of us. Like, I really do believe that. So I do think we crave him, even in ways we don't realize, you know. I think that fatherly connection is something we all crave. And my dad growing up, I mean, I know he would never hurt me. I know he loves me. Everything he does is for my safety, my good. And so I grew up very much with that view of God. Like, God, I know God is a father really well, and I believe in that version of God. I'm very blessed that like a lot of my life I haven't suffered a ton of loss yet. Like, I didn't tragically lose a parent or have like a traumatic ripping away from my family where I was like, life sucks, you know? Yeah. The last few years have been really hard for me with God. Because some life's gotten a little harder the last few years, and some things have happened where I'm like, why did that happen? Like, that's not, what am I supposed to think about you? First of all, like, you asked if I was an artist, and it was like, yeah, I tried that. And the reason I did was that I felt very led to do it in a spiritual sense. Like, I really felt God. I did not want to be an artist. I love songwriting. I wanted to write. And I genuinely the word called is cringy to me now. But at the time I felt very called into it. And I was like, okay, God, I'm doing this, but I'm following you into it. Like, I'm not just going in here by myself. And I felt very abandoned in that place. Yeah. And I was like, why would you lead me here and then leave me by myself in it? Like, it's like I was hearing God, and like God led me to this place and then he disappeared. And I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, where am I supposed to go now? And it was like, ew, what's your deal? Yeah, like,
sure.
Okay. Anyway, I ended up getting married. I ended up stopping doing the artist thing. That's like a whole nother podcast. And we've started trying for a baby. I've had 2 miscarriages in the last 6 months, and that is very hard for me to stomach. Sure. Why God would allow that. Yeah. Like, very hard for me. Yeah. My first miscarriage, I was sad. I was really sad. I was shocked I was pregnant in the first place. And so I just spent a week trying to wrap my head around that, letting that part of me die a little bit, that the woman without kids, like, in my brain, I was never going to be her again. Mm. So started letting her die a little, and then we lose the baby, and I was devastated. And I was honestly like shocked at how devastated I was for how anxious I was about being pregnant. I was just like freaking devastated. It was awful. It was like probably one of the first moments in my life of like serious grief. Like, I took 2 weeks off from work. Yeah. It was like I was in the tomb. It was dark. Yeah. And so resilience kicks in. I'm like, okay, let's try again. We try for a couple months. I get pregnant again. I found out New Year's that I was pregnant, and I had waited like a long time to take tests because I had driven myself crazy. Like, after we lost the first baby, I was like, now I want a baby. Like, maybe we're way more ready for this than we thought. So I'm driving myself freaking nuts, like taking pregnancy tests. And so finally, like in December, I'm taking tests, and it's just driving me nuts. I still haven't gotten my period. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy Christmas. If I'm still feeling funky and the time of the month is not kicked in, by New Year's, I'm going to take a test. So I took a test on New Year's. It was like clear as day pregnant. And I remember praying over, like, the day after Christmas. I was on a hike, and I remember telling God, like, because pregnancy tests are weird, like there's a faint line, and you're like, is it a line? Like, can't tell. Yeah. And I had just driven myself crazy, like I said. So I'm walking through the woods, and I have this moment with God where I said, if it's a no, help it be a clear no, and help me be okay with it. Because when you're trying to get pregnant, like every month you're trying to get pregnant is stressful, and every month you're not pregnant is like weirdly sad. Things people don't prepare you for in female adulthood. Yeah. How sad it is when you're trying for a baby and you're not pregnant 1 month. I never thought about the emotional roller coaster trying to make a child would be. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I told God in the woods, I was like, if it's a no, help it be clear no, and just help me be okay with it, and help me grieve it, and give me some like strength to try again. I was like, if it's a yes, please make it a clear yes, and help it stay yes. And I just felt like we had an understanding, man. It was one of those moments where you're like, you and me just had a major moment. So I find out I'm pregnant this one morning. I had 2 tests. I had a digital one and a line one, and the line one's always freaked me out because it was like kind of faint, kind of not. Mm-hmm. I was always like deciphering what the line meant. Right. And so that's one of the reasons I asked God for clarity, because I was like, I don't want to have to like squint, right. Like just make it clear. And so I like take the test. I'm like waiting for them. And every digital test I had ever taken just said like, not pregnant, not pregnant, not pregnant. And so that was the other scary test to me, because I was like, I'm fully expecting the words like, not pregnant. And I look down, and before the line even registers, it says pregnant, like clear as day. And I just felt like my faith just like, oh my God, how much more clear could you be?
Right.
Like, and I sobbed in the bathroom. I just, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I call my doctor the next day, and he says, come in. I come in, and he tells me he's like, does the ultrasound, and because based on like my cycle, he was like, you're probably around like 6 or 7 weeks pregnant. And so I was like, wow, like new high score, let's go. So I go into the doctor, and he says he's quiet like a little too long, and I'm like, my stomach is in my throat, and he's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, I don't really know how to tell you this, but I think you're having a molar pregnancy. And I'd never heard of a molar pregnancy. I didn't know what that was. It's very rare, but it's basically when 2 sperm inseminate an empty egg, and the cells start like rapidly dividing, but instead of dividing into a baby, your uterus basically fills up with tumors. And you have to get surgery, and then if the surgery doesn't clear all the cells out, you have to get chemotherapy, and you have to wait like 6 months to a year to like even try to have a baby again. And he said, I'm pretty sure that this is what's going on. He's like, I want you to go to the ER. I'm going to get another scan just to make sure. He was like, but I'm pretty sure it's going to confirm what I think, and you'll go in for an emergency surgery tonight, and then we'll just have to go from there. So I spent the whole day just like grieving the loss of my second pregnancy, but also the fact that the next year and a half of my life is going to look different now. Yeah. Chemotherapy and blood test, like getting my poked every week for the next year before I can even try again. So I go to the ER. We spend all day in the ER. It was like the worst day of my life. And the doctors are all just being really confusing. They won't tell me anything. That night, my doctor comes in the room to the ER, and he says, either my machine is broken or God did a miracle, because I feel like I'm looking at 2 different uteruses. He was like, I had to get 4 other doctors to look at the scans because I'm just perplexed. I don't know. He was like, your scan this morning looked this way, and your scan at the ER does not look that way. And he was like, I don't know what's going on, but you're not having a molar pregnancy, and I can't send you into surgery tonight. Whatever's going on, I don't want to like impose on it. But out his mouth, he said like, either my machine's broken or God did a miracle. Like, I'm freaked out. Wow. And I talked to him again weeks later, and he's like, I'm perplexed. I don't know how to explain it. God did a miracle. He's answering my prayer. That prayer I prayed, like, clear yes, help it stay yes. And I left that night thinking like, wow, God's promises really do outlast even what doctors say. And so he said, go home, come back in a few weeks. You'll either miscarry before then, or we'll see a baby in there in a few weeks. So I go home. We ended up having to go to like Hawaii for this work thing. That was awful because the whole time I'm waiting to miscarry. Can't get in a hot tub. Can't eat freaking poke, which is like my favorite food ever. And so can't drink. I'm just like, God, this sucks. And just the unknown, like,
oh my God,
which we all go through, you know. There are people right now waiting on cancer diagnosis, or, you know, I'm not the only human in the world that's had to wait for a call from a doctor or something to happen. So I know waiting is like a part of life, but it just sucks. Like anyone who's had to wait, it sucks. And so make it through Hawaii, come back. A couple weeks later, we go to the doctor and there's a baby in there and it's got a heartbeat. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like God did it. And so a week and a half later, we go back for another ultrasound and there's no heartbeat. And our baby had passed like 4 days before we went. Hello, airplane. And that was like a month ago.
Like recently?
Yeah, like I'm on my period right now. This is my first period since my miscarriage. And it was a missed miscarriage. They were like, a missed miscarriage is basically when your body doesn't register that the baby's passed. So your body carries on like it's pregnant. So I was walking around for a week thinking, I'm pregnant. Look at the ultrasound on the fridge, like all these things. And yeah, it just didn't go that way. Like, I believe you're the giver of life. I literally do.
Yeah.
Like the only what's going on in there is none of my business. I have no control over it. And it's your business. And I know you're capable of it. And so like, I don't understand why you do a miracle out of a doctor's mouth, do a miracle. And then for what? For it to end in like death anyway? It's, to me, it's like raising Lazarus from the dead and he gets hit by a car a week later. And you're like, what was the freaking point? Rude. It's rude. And I understand, like, my human brain can't.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to think. Like, I love God. I love God. I love Jesus, I believe. I really do. And I do think he's kind. And I think, like, but it's these moments in life where it's just like, I guess I have to love you for who you are, rather than what you're doing or not doing. And yeah, it's a necessary part of faith. It's like, you know, there's God as Father and then there's God as King. And I've always known him as Father, and maybe I haven't always known him as King. And so I think a healthy balance of the two is probably the good place to sit. But yeah, I'm God and I are fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. We're close. We're tight. I tell him exactly what I think all the time. I have no issue being mad at God. I have no issue being upset.
It's normal.
But yeah, I'm definitely like wondering what the heck is up.
Yeah. Kind of like this teeter-totter type thing.
Yeah, and it's not worked out for me yet. It's like, and some incredible things have happened. Like, for example, the night after my first miscarriage, my husband was out of town. And I was driving home from my parents' house, and this girl that I hadn't talked to in years, she like texts me and she says, girl, so random, but I had a dream last night that you had a baby. And I said, well, that's crazy because I lost a baby last night. And she said, it's got to be Jesus reassuring you, because it was the most vivid dream I've ever had. She said, you and Dylan were in the hospital and you were looking down at a baby and you guys were so in love. And I do believe God's promised you that. And it was just a moment of like, it was a promise. Like, if it was a promise. And then, you know, when we left the hospital a month ago, the second time, I had this very vivid recall of this moment that had happened like 8 years ago. I had written this song with this girl, Hillary Scott. She's like the female in Lady A. And we wrote this song called Thy Will. And we wrote that about her miscarriage like 7 years ago. We ended up like winning a Grammy for it. It was like, and I was 23. I was like, not even in mom land or husband land. I was like just trying to make it in Nashville. And after the Grammys, Hillary invited me to her house. And so I went over there and probably wearing like some slutty crop top and just like living my best life, like not thinking anything about having a family. Like, ew, that was like not where my brain was. And she invited me over, and her daughter at the time was 2. that daughter is like 10 now. But the time she was 2, like just starting to talk. And I walk into their house and Hillary said, Isley, meet Miss Emily. And this 2-year-old's playing with a toy on the floor. And I remember she looks up at me. She doesn't introduce herself. She just cocks her head. And she says, you're going to be a good mom. What? And I was like, thanks. odd moment, you know,
23, like yeah.
I'm 23. Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. Thank you. Like, it was just like a random thing for a 2-year-old to just like first thing out of their mouth, just look up at me and like cock their head and go, yeah, you're going to be a good mom. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But it was crazy. I like leave the hospital after the doctor told us there was like no heartbeat. And all I could think about was that moment. Like, God knew 8 years ago that I would need to know that I am going to be a mom. Yeah. And I'm going to be a good one. And so I do think he's kind. But it's really hard to, when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to, yeah, I'm just in the middle of it. Yeah. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I'm not on the other side yet. Yeah. To where I can say it all works out. And like God's promises, he does keep them. All I have right now is faith that he does, but I don't have the proof yet. Yeah. I do in other ways, but in this certain situation, I don't. And so, yeah, I would say like my faith is growing in a really raw, hard way. It's not pretty. It's not like I'm sitting at home like a cute little Christian girl who has faith. Like, no, this has been a messy, like, kind of thing. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Yeah. And I don't think God's pissed at me for saying that. Yeah, it's hard. I'm very much in the middle of it. And all I have right now is all the things I know God to be. Yeah. And believe God to be. And am learning God to be. But then you go, okay, well, do I not hear from you? Because I thought we had a moment in the woods. Was I crazy? Like, was that my own? Yeah. Are all these things that, like, I try to follow you step by step, and I'll take a step and I'll feel like you're saying, yeah, that's the right step. And so then I'll take the other step and it's like, yeah, that's the right step. And it's like, and then I take another step and it's like, whoa, was that me or was that you? Because I just stepped on like a freaking landmine. Like, and I thought you said yes to take the step. And it was a landmine. So like, am I hearing your voice or am I hearing my own thoughts and hoping it's you? And it's just, I'm just very in the middle of it.
I get it.
I'm curious.
I get it.
I really do love Jesus. I believe. I love him.
Yeah. I get
like, it. I don't have allegiance to anything else as far as like, it's not making me go, oh, what's Buddhism like? Sure, yeah. You know, but it's like, yeah, I'm peeved.
I get it.
I'm real peeved. You know, and I don't take the pretty approach of like, don't be mad at God. I'm like, no, I freaking am. I am mad. The same way Martha and Mary were mad when Lazarus died. It's like they were pissed. Yeah. They were like, if you were here, this wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And I've always been so encouraged by that. Like when I read stories about, and you like zoom in on these characters and you're like, they were pissed at Jesus. Yep. And I'm like, why are we so like tiptoey around God? Like, I'm pissed. Sure. I've lost 2 babies. In 5 months, I'm mad. Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine any of that stuff. And I don't, like I said, I've never experienced that, so I don't have anything to say, but
no, it's okay.
I do know this.
I didn't tell you.
No, I mean, I get it, but like Emily, like for real, like I do want you to know that like there's an audience here on this show, and your story and like the fact that you brought up the Hillary thing, like it's inspiring a lot lot of people. And like, I know you know that, but like to hear it from 3 dudes that you probably never met before, like we see it. Well, I will say I can't relate to the the motherhood stuff, but I'm going through stuff like that right now with my own mom. I talked about this on our last episode. We were supposed to have you on last week, so we ended up doing our little like solo thing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, so my mom's going through pancreatic cancer right now.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's all good. I mean, but like you mentioned, like it's like this roller coaster that it feels like, and I totally get that. And there's moments where it's like, why would a loving God kind of do this? And my mom's my best friend in the world, and it's like you just start questioning stuff, and it's like 2 steps forward, 1 steps back, and she defeated it. She got diagnosed a year ago. She defeated it this past summer, and we were like, oh, God is good. Relief, like, praise God, like he answered the prayers. And then 2 months later it came back, and it came back more vicious. Like, it freaking just came back with a vengeance. And you know, I was like, it was kind of just one of those moments, like you mentioned. It's like I thought, like what is going on here? Like, I just don't even know how to feel. And it's tough because like I'm in it with you as far as like that goes, and you start to question things, but also like I think what I'm holding on to is that like God is good, not because of like what he's done for me or what he does for me, but because of what he did on the cross, and like the goodness of that, and that like I don't even deserve anything. The fact that I have had a mom for 23 years is a gift in itself. The fact that you have a loving husband that like gets you, like you guys are going in this together. It's not like, you know, you're like doing this alone. You have like parents here in Nashville. It's like you see the little things, and that's like literally what I'm holding on to, and it's tough, but it's real. So I appreciate you being vulnerable with that part of your life.
Oh, I mean, thank you for saying that. I'm so sorry about your mom and what your family's going through, and I relate to what you just said about like the little things. It's like suffering is
tough
part of life, though. It's like Jesus suffered, you know, and it's like until we experience that as well, like it really is like, it does make you weirdly grateful. You know, I remember the first miscarriage, like 2 weeks, it was just felt like 2 weeks, like the longest 2 weeks of my life. And I remember coming out of that 2 weeks thinking, I'm so thankful. Those 2 weeks felt so long, because now we have like social media, and I have this job that just like, I mean, I can't believe it's Thursday right now. It feels like Sunday was yesterday, you know? And I'm so afraid of death and like time flying, and me waking up at 80 years old and thinking, where the frick did my life go? And and I'm like, every day, I wish every day felt as long as those 2 weeks did. I wish every week felt that long. And it felt long because I was present in every single moment of it, even if pain and suffering was what was keeping me in the moment. Like, even if it was survival that was keeping me present, at least that was a long 2 weeks of being with my husband, being with my family, and like appreciating the fact that there are so many women who go through this and don't have families who are there to rally, or husbands that, you know, are there to be strong when you can't, and just all the things. It really does, like, it cracks you open, and you have no choice but to grow around the suffering and around the grief. And, you know, your heart becomes bigger because, you know, someone sent me a song. It's called Grief is Only Love. And it's just a great song. I mean, that is what it is, you know. It's like, it really touched me of like, I'm only grieving because I have something to love, and I have something that I lost, but at least I had something to lose. You know, and you saying like, you're just thankful for the years you've had with your mom. It's like, and I pray you have so many more years with her. I really do. But yeah, it's weird. It's like,
it's tough.
the thing that makes life matter is that it ends.
Wow, that's a quote right there.
You know, like that's why it matters. I was sitting around the table with my family, and I thought, oh my God, there's going to be a day where my parents aren't here, and my siblings are God knows where, and we can't just all sit and have dinner and laugh. And I thought, we can't always do this. And then my next thought was like, I guess that's why this is so special, and it's so important for me to be here and be present in it, because we won't always be able to do it. And I'm like, that's what makes life matter. If we could live forever, like it wouldn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I'm becoming stronger, and I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
In ways that you could never become. But like my sister and I were joking, like you look at your parents and they're so like calm and peaceful probably. And just like kids go to their parents because parents have countless times been on the other side of a hard season, and they know it works out, you know, and you become resilient, you become strong with every season of suffering you go through, or every season of pain. And, you know, my second miscarriage was easier than my first one.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was like, I mean, obviously I just cried just now talking about it. I'm still very tore up, but like, as far I had a better handle on the truth about it, and how to handle it, and how to move forward. And it wasn't my first rodeo, you know what I mean? So it's like, even parenting myself, like being able to soothe myself and speak life into myself about it. Cause I got through it once. I've laughed since then. I've had good times since then. I know that hard seasons always have an end too.
Yep.
And so, it's there have been these weird moments where I'm almost like honored I get to join in suffering, because I haven't experienced a lot of it in my life yet. And I'm like, it's kind of a rite of passage for all humans. And I think life is supposed to be hard. It's like a long letting go. It's like, how many older people do you know that are like, yeah, I'm ready to be in heaven? You know, I think like if we believe we weren't made for this earth, then at some point we're over it. Like we've lost our people, you know, it's this long letting go of this from this earth of like, I long for something more than this, more than loss, and more than death, and more than, you know, having to say goodbye to things I love and people I love. And, you know, we long for heaven and everything that is. And, you know, I believe like heaven is here in so many ways. And so that's like, again, a whole nother podcast. But my point is like, there's so much wisdom that comes with suffering, and you have to grow around your grief. Like life goes on, you have to go with it, you know? And so it's like, I've learned that it is always going to be a part of who I am. It's this hard thing I've gone through, and every hard thing I'll ever go through is going to become a part of who I am.
You're growing through it. I see, like, it's very easy for me to like be narrow and be like, why is this happening to me? But then I kind of look at it sometimes like from a broader perspective. There have been so many people that like my mom's story has inspired, and like one of those being like my grandparents, like who are awesome, but like it's like truly just like inspiring to them, and like they're just like growing through it and growing like in their faith through it. And like I've had people on Instagram just like out of nowhere be like, I don't know, you've probably not seen my TikTok. If you have, I'm so sorry, but my TikTok is ran by my mom. Like mom is like
really?
She's like, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be here. And like she runs my career. So literally like she like, so like when all this happened, it's like everybody was kind of going through it with us. Yeah. But also at the same time, it's like everyone was being inspired through it, which was kind of cool. And I've had multiple people just like message me like, your mom and like her strength through this has made me want to, you know, go to church and like do this or like explore this part of my life. And I have to remind myself that like the Lord does you know, take things that we see are bad and he uses it for good. And that's it's what I'm holding on to. So, but anyways, thanks for being vulnerable with that. Like for real.
Of course.
We what we like to do each week, like when we have a guest on, is we'll kind of prepare a verse. We'll kind of just come up with something that we think relates to some sort of professional thing that you do, obviously songwriter, but also just like we'll analyze it, like the lyrics that you write, like we know it's like a lot, like you do a lot of like therapy songs, or like that's like a theme that recurs. So like we'll just pick out stuff. So when I was reading this week, and if you're listening right now, we're going to be in 2 Timothy if you have a Bible. So we were, doing our thing this week, and we came across this verse that we kind of just wanted to leave you with. And it is 2 Timothy 1:7, and it says, "For God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." And I love that verse, and the way we wanted to like kind of relate it is because like through it all, and even like what you just mentioned, there's kind of like that triad that talks about like the Holy Spirit empowers us like through power, through love, and through self-discipline. And so there's this like this cool idea that like we don't have to live in fear. We can be bold. Like we can proclaim the gospel because the Lord has provided that power, love, and self-discipline. I think of like when it comes to power, like verses like Ephesians 3:16, according to the riches of his glory, he may grant you strength with power to know the spirit of the inner being, strength and power through his spirit in your inner being. And so what I'm curious about is through all this, like how you mentioned like when you first played for your dad, and like that kind of sort of power that it gave you, and like that sense of empowerment, like how has that kind of shown up in your songwriting type of career stuff? Like what does that look like
as far as like
feeling like, how does faith kind of play a part in like that songwriting, and sort of like that feeling of like this is not like, I don't know how I wrote that song like that. Like that was like just straight, like that was just, I don't even know.
I mean, anyone who creates anything, I think, it's become very clear to me that I am nothing but a vessel. I think like God is a creator, and so he made all of us creative. Like even the people I was talking about earlier who work in cubicles, like they're creative too, just in their own way. And I think it's a natural part of all of us. And I feel honored that God gave me a gift and a personality that lends itself to making music and confessional songwriting. But I do know that at the end of the day, like it's him writing. And I think that becomes really apparent when I listen to a song years after I wrote it. Like even now, like in this season, I listen to Thy Will. I can't sing it. I physically cannot sing it.
It just wrecks you.
It wrecks me. And I can't sing it. Like it's a song I did not have any part in. God knew 7, 8 years ago that someday I would need that song just as much as, the women who've come up to me in the last 7 years and thanked me because they had a miscarriage. And I just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," because I had never been through that and I didn't understand the weight. And it's like almost a gift. Now, any woman who comes up to me and shares that with me, like I understand now, and I'm one of them. And I need that song just as much as they do. And I had no idea when I was writing that when I was like 22 and probably hungover from the night before and just kind of phoning it in because I knew how to talk like a Christian because I was raised that way, And so anytime I listen to a song that I wrote and I'm emotional from it, like I'm not like so self-involved that I'm like crying at my own song. You know what I mean? It's like a moment to me where I'm like, oh, I didn't write that actually. Like it's actually so not me that I'm being affected as if someone else created it. And so I have to remember that, and I have to go in every day. I went in today, I had no ideas, and I was like, God, I got nothing today. I'm in the middle of grief. I wish I was prettier about it, and I'm just not. It's not who I am. I'm just like messy about things, and I have no problem being messy in front of other people.
Yeah.
And I just don't. And if I'm gonna be of any value today, I'm just gonna need you to like drop it in there once I'm in there, you know. And I have talks with God like that every day.
Yeah.
And I went in and we started flowing. I was in with my friends, and sure enough, like we left 4 hours later with an incredible song, and I love it. But like I can't take much credit for it. You know, I didn't walk in with anything. And so and you know, we talked earlier about all the different genres. Like I think everything is spiritual. Like none of this would, to me, like that brick wall right there is spiritual, because some human that God created got it in their brain to build it, and they did it. And I just think it's all a form of worship in so many ways, like operating as the humans that God created. Like I just think creating anything is like spiritual. I think talking to each other is spiritual. I remember like going to this church years ago, and the pastor said, all right, I want everybody to join up with somebody in the room who you don't know. And I'd only been to this church like one time. So this one thing happened on this one day I went to this church, and I go back to it often. So I was obviously supposed to be there, but he said, I want everyone to join in somebody else in the church who you don't know and just stand next to them. He said, now I either want you to talk about, there's a horse race on this weekend. I want you to talk about you're happy who won, you're mad about who won, or you did not know there was a horse race on and you don't know anything about horse racing. And he goes, go, you have 2 minutes. So I remember talking to this random lady, like, I didn't even know horses raced anymore. And we're just talking about horse racing.
Yeah.
He says, okay, go back to your seats. We go back to our seats. He said, what you just did is just as spiritual as the worship we did before that and the tithe we're about to take. And he was like, wow. Humans God created interacting with one another and just being together. He's like, that's so spiritual. It's all spiritual. It's like we only take church things and say it's spiritual. And so like when I've, you know, written a song that's not about God, and someone or I've confessed something that's maybe not super Christian in a song, and someone's been like, that's not very that. I'm like, well, it's real and it's happened and it's confessional and it's true. Like there's a difference between being shocking and telling the truth. Sometimes the truth is shocking, and I always have to ask myself when I am being confessional, like, am I doing it for shock factor, or am I doing it because that's where I'm at and that's true? Because if it's true, I can stand by it at the end of the day. If I'm doing it to shock, I can't stand by it. That's putting on. And so I think it's all spiritual. Like when people are like, you don't write just Christian songs. I'm like, no, I don't. Because humanity is innately spiritual. Like it is spiritual for me to admit something about, you know, a relationship with a guy or a relationship with my parents or how I feel about a certain thing. If it makes somebody else in the world feel seen and not alone and closer to God, because there's not this weird wall between them and God anymore, because somebody else said what they were thinking first. Sure. And so now they can admit it too. Yeah. I love that. Like now they can connect beyond whatever that wall or that weird shame thing was too. Yeah. You know, like if me being confessional, helps someone else feel less ashamed, I'm doing the Lord's work in my brain. You know what I mean? Yeah, I get it. And so I'm just kind of, I mean, I think the power of fear, like I really don't have a fearful relationship with songwriting. Yeah. I don't care if it's the nastiest, grossest, worst thing someone could possibly know about me. Yeah. I will sing it in a song. Yeah. I don't care. Like I really don't. And even if there's a part of me that's like, scary. Yeah. I don't care. At the end of the day, like my actions are going to be in line with, I don't care, because I do believe that I'm operating from a place of a gift that God gave me. And of course there's like boundaries and responsibility with that. And I'll always be growing in that. I'll probably listen to this podcast in 10 years and go, Emily, you're so young and dumb. You know, I'll probably say that in 10 years and that's fine. But I have no problem being what I am right now. Sure. Right here.
I love it.
And for better or worse. Like I think music is the most transcendent, powerful thing in the world. You can listen to a song and you're different when it's over.
Yeah.
You feel different. You feel freer. You feel uncomfortable, or you feel happy.
Yeah.
You feel just like, sweet, good vibes, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it shifts the atmosphere in humans, in the world. And I don't think anything's off limits as long as it's true. And I go into this job with that attitude because I know that I've been empowered to like use my gift in that way. Yeah. And I believe that.
Yeah.
And you know.
Yeah. That's why I admire you so much, because like you do like, you're just any genre you're doing it. And I think that's been hard for me too. It's like I was raised in the church and come from a Christian background, and was given a gift to sing and songwrite and stuff. And you have to like stop when you grow up, like you have to like question, okay, well, Christian music kind of seems like the path, because it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, you've been given a gift, and I think that there's always ways to point people towards that bigger purpose. You mentioned a lot, like you said, in your lyrics and stuff like that. I think about like, okay, well, if everybody in the Christian church was like not everybody in the Christian church is like going to become a pastor. Like we're not, like we were all given certain gifts. And I think about like the people that are not necessarily in Christian music, but they're in the sort of secular, I don't even like that word. They're in the non-Christian music. But then you gather this audience, and they love this song, and then they see, oh, well, this girl or this guy is like, there's like a faith aspect to them, and that kind of attaches them to that, and now they're like kind of exploring that part of their life. And so I'm all for it. So I really do admire that about you. And
thank you.
That's one of the things that we want to do with this podcast. Like, we don't want just people in the Christian field or like doing the Christian music thing, or pastors and stuff. Like, we want everybody that kind of comes from a faith background to share, like, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm pointing people to a bigger purpose.
It's really cool. Yeah.
And
I will say I've had to learn, with Christian culture, I used to be very like anti, like, church people, Christian music, like, but I think like at the end of the day, I've had to learn, like, I don't have to go in somewhere and change it. Like, I think people mean well is what I think I'm getting at. Like, we're probably running out of time, and I'll make this really fast, but like, I remember with Thy Will, I largely based my faith off of whether or not I had sex. Virginity was just like an easy rule to like latch onto as a Christian kid. And so for me, Thy Will at the time, I had given my virginity away, and I just like it. That was a big faith crisis for me, because I did the one thing I said I swore I'd never do, that my whole faith was based off of. And so then I had to kind of go back and say, okay, the one thing I've always based being a Christian off of, I can't say anymore. So why do I believe what I believe? What do I believe? Yeah. It was definitely a redefining moment for me as far as my faith goes. And I when we went to the Grammys and like won a Grammy for that song, I did an interview, and they'd asked me like what the song meant to me. And I told them the story, because again, like, to me, I was like, they asked me, this is what happened. I didn't try to dress it up for anybody, and not in a shocking way. It was purely, they asked me. So I purely told them like, well, I grew up thinking this, and whatever. And I got a lot of backlash. Like, they didn't even post the interview. And I remember just people coming at me like, who's this whore representing Christians at the Grammys? She's the devil's using her, not blah, blah. And I just remember I went on this tear for like 5 years where I just like hated Christian people. And I was one. But I just like Christian culture and church people and people who listen to Christian music, like who don't want the real story. They want the dressed up pretty story. Like you're allowed to say you're broken, but you're not allowed to say why you're broken. Ooh. And you're allowed to sing about being broken, but you have to be redeemed by the time you're singing about it. It has to be like an in the past thing. Wow. You're not allowed to be in process. And it just used to really piss me off. And I kind of like thought I was being a hero, like trashing them and dissing them, and had to get to a point where I was like, these people mean they it's their way of loving. And in a lot of ways is like, they believe a certain thing and I can't go into a place and disrupt it and expect like change to happen. Like I had to have some like ego death there about like, you know, I had to grow in compassion and grace, just like I wanted them to grow in for me. You know, like they truly thought that they were saving me from hell or whatever it was, like by calling me out on that. And, or that they were, you know, I just going into a space and respecting the way people, you know, communicate with God and not having to like, I don't know, I'm not explaining this well, but I just, I remember having to let go of my like or dislike. Like it didn't matter. Yeah. I kind of felt God go, don't worry about it. Like, just let them be how they are. Yeah. Like, love them, connect with them, not just love them. I think loving from afar is like, it's connecting. It's trying to understand. It's like learning, being in community with people who are different than you. And like maybe view it different or approach it different, and not feeling like I had to change them in the way they felt like they had to change me. Like I could just, and the more I opened myself up to just connecting and understanding and learning, the more I realized that they were really coming from a place of love and wanting to connect in a way that, you know, I didn't feel the need to have to go in and tell everybody about my virginity anymore. You know, it was like I can know my audience and then share that. But I just remember like being really frustrated about that, and God just kind of having to like chill me out about it and be like, yo, don't get your back up. Like, it's fine. You know what I mean? And so,
it's real.
Yeah, it's like, it's a major learning curve. And I think like, you know, Christians, we get caught in this thing of like, we need to call people out and we always need to, like, we need to correct people. And like, we need to connect with people. And I think correction comes after connection. And like, you know, my dad calls it emotional banking. You pour into somebody and you deposit, and then you can withdraw because you have deposits in there to make withdrawals from. You don't withdraw from someone you haven't deposited into. You could just go into overdraft, like emotional overdraft with someone. And I found the same with faith. Like instead of me, you know, Christians come in all different shapes and sizes. And I don't love like the progressive thing of like my truth. It's like, I kind of think there's like a truth. That's what makes it the truth. And like, you know, we all have our opinions and our perspectives on it and our interpretations of it. But, you know, I do believe there's like the truth and then people's opinions, you know, like, I don't know really how I felt about the my truth thing, but my point is, I do think followers of Jesus, like people who love Jesus, like we're all work in progress and we come in all shapes, sizes, colors, vibes, all you
broken, know, all broken people.
Yeah. And I just also think we're all like beautiful and we're all trying our best. We're all doing the best we can. And the last thing we need is Christians coming at each other for being different kinds of Christians. It's like, no, it's so I'm, you know, that's what I love about music is that they might not like the story behind my song, but the song connected with them. And so it's like, okay, I'll save this story for some 20-year-old girl who will connect with that story. I'm not going to tell it to, you know, 60-year-old Eleanor, you know, like I'll just connect with 60-year-old Eleanor on the, you know, the verse flipper thingy on the windowsill and what the verse of the day was, and we'll talk about that, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm such a work, and I'm very an in-process person, very much
right here with you, Emily.
In the faith department. So
I think last thing I wanted to say, just I guess for anybody listening, and I feel like a lot of girls especially that are going to be listening that may be going through some stuff that may be similar to your story. Like, God is good, and I'm starting to, and that's like a process I think both of us are going through, and just I want to like remind people that tonight, that like God is good, and we don't deserve a thing, and everything that is given us is a gift, the Bible says, and the fact that the Lord did send Jesus Christ come and be that gift for us is a really beautiful thing. And I think we have to hold on to that. You said it earlier, it's like you're holding on to the fact of who God is rather than what he does. And I'm holding on to that with my own story. So reminding people that tonight, it's because of God, who God is, rather than what he's doing, and he's looking out for you. Like, I know he's looking out for you, Emily, and he's looking out for a lot of girls that are watching this. So
he's looking out for you too, and your mama.
Thank you. That's it. Well, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
I want to end just with a quick question. Is we ask everybody this, so we got to do it. If there was one piece of advice you could give little Emily, what would that be?
One piece of advice on little Emily. I don't know. That answer is probably different every day. I think today it would be, I don't know. I'd probably just tell her, like, enjoy it. It's going to be hard. It's going to be easy. It's going to be the most joyful, thrilling, awful, terrible life, because that's just what life is. So just like enjoy it. Yeah. Be nice to yourself. And just like let it do what it's going to do to you, Just like let go a little.
I love it.
Kind of a control freak, so
I love it. Do we have time for a song? You're pretty dope, so we'd love to hear a song.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah, I could do that. I could just grab my guitar from the car.
Let's do it.
I wrote this song with Old Dominion, that country band. Oh yeah. And it's on the radio right now with Megan Maroney. Or Can't Bury Him Now. I have to sing it like really low because it's like a duet, so I go low and then back. Bear with me. You know the color of my coffee, too many t-shirts in my closet that you bought me. At this point I can't unlearn the things you've taught me about myself. You pick the music when I'm driving, and mama always takes my side when you fight me. And these days my dog likes you more than he likes me. You can just tell. So what am I supposed to listen to every song written, take you out of every melody? You know my secrets, my demons, and I know your weaknesses, all of your doubts and your dreams. So we can't break up now. No, we can't break up now. I hate the thought of starting over. If you left, I know I'd never get closure. Can't imagine letting anyone get closer than you are to me. I'll battle this out all night till we fix it. If the ship's going down, I'm going down with it. Your friends are my friends, I saw where you went. We've got too much history, so we can't break up now. No, we can't break up now. We've come too far and we're in too deep. We love too hard just to let it go, so we can't break up now. Oh,
atmosphere, so I'm listening to every song written. Take you out of every melody. No, we can't break up now. 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 I've come too far and we're in too deep. We love too hard just to let it go. So we can't break up now. No, we can't break up now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emily Weisband.